Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Down the Wrestling Rabbit Hole on the Lariat Podcasting Network, on the ever growing, ever expanding, ever popular Lariat Nation Network, or whatever they're called. I always goof that up in the beginning, Mozart, because I get so hyped up to.
You're
Yeah,
fired up today.
I'm fired. I'm a little
Jeez.
fired up. A little fired up. But
Listeners, we should start taping our pre-production meetings because Howard he gets wired. Gotta calm Howard down.
again, like I know you've pulled back the curtain a little bit, Mozart. So I'll pull back our curtain just a teeny bit.
Pull
We've
it.
actually been on since about 5 after 6, just BSing and talking
No
about
BS.
about
We're
things.
working. It's called work, listeners. It's called
Right.
work.
This is the show prep that you get for this fine podcast for our millions and millions of viewers that are out there. Mozart, I sometimes like to drop some historical knowledge every once in a
Always.
while.
Nobody got something for me.
So
I'll get
I'm
it
gonna,
wrong.
I'm going to throw out a date.
Throw it. I'll get it wrong, but let's do it.
Well, you might not, because this might be something you're familiar with. February 1978.
February 1978. The needle dropped on Van Halen 1.
Absolutely. Van Halen releases their self-titled Van Halen album, and
Changed
it
the
sold
game.
10 million copies.
Wow.
Now you got to understand, 78. That's 48 years ago, if my math is right.
78. Wow.
So it was right. I don't want to say at the peak of, but it was right in that disco-y kind of little genre that nobody likes to talk about. So
The,
to
the Bee
release
Gees were cool.
the
Stop
Bee
it.
Gees were cool.
Yeah.
Um,
There you go. Give it
but
up.
but to release a what I'll call a classical rock album, because it is classical, or classic, I should say. To
Hmm.
release an album like that at that time, it should have tanked, at the record stores. And people at record stores are where you used to go to buy your music. You didn't download it, you didn't stream it, you actually went and bought records.
Yes, you
78,
did.
33 and a thirds, 45s, 8 tracks, and look up 8 tracks in case
Vinyl's back again though. So the
Vinyl is
young
back.
kids are yeah, the young
Vinyl is
kids are
back.
familiar with vinyl.
Um,
They want record players and they want the scratchy, they want the pop. Yeah.
and I like that those pops, those clicks, that white noise um, that
White
comes
noise.
that comes
Makes me
with
feel like there's a ghost
there's
in the
no
room.
better sound than that needle, hitting the record, and that little tick, and then the music starts, and then you try. And for those of you unfamiliar with the record, there was actually like a little space between each song. You had to line that needle up. If you don't want to listen to the first song or two, you could actually
Hmm.
go to the third song and drop that needle down
Be
and
careful you
play
don't
it.
scratch that vinyl though,
Which you
baby. You
didn't,
gotta
right?
go
You
get a
had to
new
be
one.
careful not to scratch it. And it was almost it was almost like nails across the chalkboard when you scratched a record.
Hmm.
But sticking with with Van Halen, and more in particular Eddie Van Halen, probably
The
the
king.
greatest probably the greatest guitar player to ever play guitar. And the impact, and I'm going to keep using that word throughout the night, the impact that he had
Yeah.
on not only rock and roll, but the music,
Everything.
industry across the board. I would dare you to find me somebody that is, I would say, that is in music that actually means something. And yes, because I don't think all musicians mean anything to the music business, but any
Hmm.
musician that's worth their salt that wouldn't give some sort of credit, their playing style, their music, the way they write, their persona, whatever it is, they would give some percentage to Eddie Van Halen. And I would debate that with anybody. And I don't know a whole lot about music, but I do
There's
know some
a
stuff about Eddie Van Halen.
there's a a bigger, impact, changed the game. Not only did he tap, which he famously doesn't claim to have invented it, he made it his own. And you know that they, like a lot of independent wrestlers, they hit the scene after just killing it on the Sunset Strip, on the the Hollywood, the LA bar scene. They the clubs were getting bigger. Everybody's coming to see this hot guitar player. My friends that are musicians, I just had this conversation the other night with a couple buddies. It was There was a technical prowess to him, right? So he was a classically trained pianist, converted to himself to guitar, was also a drummer early on. So he had a real percussive way of playing, which is a big deal as a guitar player because you get that groove.
Right.
But the sound, the Brown sound, they called it, the famous Brown sound, was what everybody chased for the next 2 decades, at least, when you had a guitar sound on a record, a recording.
Now, for those unfamiliar, we just said that Van Halen released their debut album in 78. Van Halen started in 72, 54 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and just revolutionized. And I know we throw that word around a lot, but I really mean they revolutionized the business. When they hit the scene, I mean, when they hit, man, they hit it hard. And of course, the original lineup with Van Halen, was David Lee Roth, Michael Anthony, Alex, and Eddie Van Halen. Um, you know, I don't, short of the Beatles, I don't think that you have a foursome like that really anywhere. That have that had that. I don't want to say staying power because there's been bands that have been around a long time, but the impact there. See, yes, I said it again. The impact
Impact.
that they had on the music industry and everything else that the music industry touched, their fashion, everything. And
Well,
still,
it's the
one of my
blueprint, Howard. It became the blueprint because you had the flamboyant frontman in David Lee
yes,
Roth. You had the good-looking, gunslinging guitar player. You had a thunderous rhythm section that was basically modeled after Led Zeppelin, after John Bonham and John Paul Jones. Um, and you put that together and they're recording in a studio live, right? So that's a big deal too. So that record sounds really raw. You drop the needle and you get the reverse car horn sound for Running with the Devil. And then the bass line comes in,
mm,
it's just right, doom, doom. And then the little run down the back of the strings, you get the little crystalline sound, and then comes the riff that changed the world, and it really did. Um,
the riff that changed the world. That is probably something that we should probably coin and put on a T-shirt if our producer is listening.
what,
Definitely.
crystalline?
No, the riff that changed the world.
I mean, it it did. I mean, it was never the same after that, man. But yeah, man, it's
So sticking
yeah.
with the impact theme that we have going on, and being this is a pro wrestling podcast, and I know we go down a lot of different rabbit holes. And you see, listeners, we do talk about more. We are more than versed in just pro wrestling. We can talk about any topic, whether we make sense or not. That's a whole nother story. But we can talk about a lot of different things. Um, and
I'm gonna hide my face for a minute, Howard. Talk away.
all right. And so it got me to thinking, as far as impact wrestlers, is there and this it's debatable, right? Um it's up for debate, it's up for interpretation, however you want to call it or look at it. But is there a wrestler that has had as big an impact on the business of pro wrestling as Eddie Van Halen did, you know, in music? Like Mozart said, he really revolutionized and changed, um, the way music is done, the way music sounds, the way performances are done, and all of that. And I know that there's people that are going to be listening to this. As soon as I say what wrestler made an impact, you know, Stone Cold's name is going to come out. Ric Flair's name is going to come out. Um, and guys that we think changed the game, but have they really? And for just the sake of this broadcast and for my entertainment only, and I know our producer's going to laugh as soon as I say this, we will exclude Barry Windham from this discussion, just because we talk about Barry Windham a lot, so we will leave him out of this discussion.
What, Barry Windham? Wait a
Barry
minute.
Windham, yeah.
I don't understand how
This is
you
a
can leave
Barry
Barry Windham
Windham.
out of a discussion. Like, if
This
you're
is a
talking anything, Barry Windham is the greatest wrestler to ever step in a ring other than Barry Windham.
other than Barry. Yeah, the only other rival to Barry Windham will be Barry Windham. So,
Exactly. That's our new mantra on this show. Barry Windham.
but who Mozart do you think changed the business? I'm talking about like legitimately changed the
Well,
wrestling business.
yeah, so impact wise, like the again, the impact that Edward Van Halen had on music was that you can make an argument, okay, he wasn't I mean, my favorite guitar player ever, but just personally, but okay, there are guys that are maybe more technically sound. Okay, there are guys that played faster. But nobody overall did what he did, change the game. And he was technical and he was fast, right? But there were aspects of what he did that the point is he literally changed the game. When
Right.
Les Paul himself, who has a guitar named after him, tells Edward Van Halen, "You changed the game, kid."
Yeah. So,
Telling
I
that
mean,
in
you talk about
84,
technical,
85.
right?
So
So you can bring up guys like Dean Malenko, right? Very technically sound
all day long.
all day long, right? Man of a
hmm
thousand holds, which I think Chris Jericho had nailed down to like 800
I'm a
something
man of I'm a
that
man
list.
of 999 holds because I just don't want to I don't want to outdo Dean.
Right, you can't. You can't.
Yeah, no, nobody wants
And,
that.
and when of course when it comes to showmanship and things like that, I think between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, they changed showmanship, right? They changed how you come to the ring. Ric Flair always dressed real elaborately, but I don't think that they changed the entirety of the business. I mean, they had small impacts on parts of it, and they were great at what they did. And no disrespect to them, but you
You're
know,
disrespectful, Howard. Damn
I,
it. And
I'm
can I
just
say damn it?
you can
Because
probably say damn it.
Barry
Yeah,
Windham never
you
said
just
damn
can't
it.
right. You just can't say
I
Barry Windham
mean,
on the show. You're not allowed.
no. So when I saw it yesterday, it got me thinking because it was Eddie Van Halen's birthday yesterday, and a lot of tributes on social media, and of course his son, who's super talented, a lot of tributes. Um, I started thinking the first name that came to mind for me to change the game, changed it completely, wasn't done like that before. Was Tommy Billington, was the Dynamite Kid.
Dynamite Kid.
And the reason that I kind of went with him was there's an entire genre and subgenre of wrestling that just wouldn't have existed without him, from Bret the Hitman Hart style to even the power stuff that Davey Boy Smith was doing, to the Pureso stuff, the Hart Strong style with Jushin Thunder Liger, Ultimate Dragon. It just bled in. It was a combination of catch wrestling from Wigan, of an aerial style, an aerial acrobatic style. It was power. It was finesse. There was a lot of stuff that just became one, much like those early Van Halen records with the great songs, with the great guitar tone, the playing that nobody had ever heard before, that type of the type of runs and the solos, the groove. That to me, that's who came to mind for me. Now I think the rabbit hole was going to be who else,
Right.
because
Well,
I couldn't come up with anybody to change the game like that. As great as all these guys were, and every one of them was great. I mean, Harley was incredible, but I don't know that he changed the game.
right. Yeah, as great as Harley
I
is, and
mean,
a lot of respect for, you know,
Flair. You
Harley.
mentioned
Yeah.
Flair. I mean, Flair. If anybody, I'll tell you, I'll backtrack, because if there was somebody before Dynamite that changed the game, it was Gorgeous George, and I'll tell you why. Because George was a legitimate, authentic wrestler that could grapple with Thesz, but he was also flamboyant and a TV star. Was the first major TV star, I think, in the 50s, when TV was, TV wrestling was easy to produce. It was cheap. It was like every network wanted it. And George was the star for TV, and that came from Lou Thesz's book, when Thesz was kind of recounting the history of where he had come from in the early days, the 20s and 30s, up until his career spanned, I want to say, 7 decades. I think he wrestled in 7 different decades. I could be wrong about that, but George was one of the guys that he had mentioned kind of revolutionized the game. So although he didn't do it in the way that Dynamite did, he changed what it was because it went from black trunks, black boots, and catch holds to powdered wigs, costumes, nose up in the air. He's
Right.
too good for everybody. So that could be our first real.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah. Let's dive into
And too, before Howard, I mean, interrupt you, but we talked about this offline. The great Steve Vai, who essentially became David Lee. Well, he didn't essentially. He became David Lee Roth's guitar player once he left Van Halen and went solo. Phenomenal player. I read Steve Vai himself, who I revere Steve Vai, just an incredible player, said that there were only two guys that really changed the game in guitar. The first was Hendrix. The second was Eddie Van Halen. There's not been a third. I'll stick with that motto with wrestling. The first guy who changed it was Gorgeous George. The second guy who changed the game again was Dynamite Kid. How about that? Can we roll with that rabbit hole?
yeah, no, yeah, we can, and that's kind of where I was kind of headed, and it was great that you picked up on, you know, Gorgeous George because I was thinking about him, and you're right, the way TV was presented,
Hmm.
prior to Gorgeous George coming out, it was very much, I want to say, plain and bland in a way that it wasn't bland boring, but it was bland. It was just catch wrestling. It was hold for hold. There wasn't a lot of flash in there. And then, arrives Gorgeous George and
Hmm.
just takes it to the next level. And I believe most, and I think I could be safe in saying this, that most of the personas that have followed can be tied directly back to Gorgeous George and the things that he did, you know, all of that, all of those years ago, we're talking what mid to late 30s. Um, so you're talking 1930s. You had a what I'll to the listeners they're at here now. You had a Ric Flair style wrestler in the 1930s, who was really like Mozart said, over the top, had the ring sprayed, the ropes held for him, didn't like the sweat, didn't so he encapsulated what a modern professional wrestler is supposed to be, where he kind of transcends not only his in ring ability, but that persona, that over the top persona, and really I think that was the start of the evolution of television wrestling. And like
Oh yeah, no doubt.
television wrestling was, for those that say, oh, we watch wrestling on television every week. Television wrestling wasn't meant to be the product that we see today. Television wrestling was meant to promote house shows in your area, shows that they would come to your literally, seven, 8 times a week. These guys would show up at different towns, and these programs that you got to watch literally once, maybe twice a week if you could find it. Once a week were meant to draw you into those shows that were coming up that following week, and so it was used as a tool to sell tickets. Now it's more, I mean, it's so much more of a production, so much more of a show that they really, I don't think that other than the independent scene that they do house shows anymore. They don't perform, and I could be wrong. There could be some odd ones here or there, but back in, I'll go back to when I started watching, the mid '80s or so. There were
In,
shows,
in the 20s.
right? There were shows, in Hartford, Connecticut on Monday. They'd be in Boston on Tuesday. They'd be in New York on Wednesday, Philly on Thursday, Baltimore on Friday. And just make that loop. They'd be out in Pittsburgh, so they literally traveled everywhere. And Gorgeous George was part of that fuse that kind of lit what modern pro wrestling at a TV level has evolved into. So yeah, we can't discredit Gorgeous George, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a very short list because of how we've kind of you know defined our parameters here, and there is a strict guide that we're kind of going with. Again, we're not talking about selling tickets. We're not talking about being flashy. We're not talking about it. We're talking about changing the business.
When you said short list, I thought you were calling me short bus for a minute because
No, no, no.
I'm trying to get my camera straight here. This is live without a net,
This you're right.
which
This is as
which
live
is
as it gets.
let's tie it around because you know I always do. In the Van Hagar era, which was the second incarnation of Van Halen with Sammy Hagar, the big live album was Live Without a Net.
Yes, yes.
It's
So
like a Barry Horowitz type. It's
right,
not Barry Windham.
not
It's a
Barry
Barry
Windham, Barry
Horowitz.
Horowitz. Right,
Yeah, tap it
Barry
on the back,
Horowitz.
baby.
One of the other Barrys. So, but
Exactly.
we're all right.
You know
But
my favorite. You know my favorite incarnation of Barry Windham was though. So
the
there were two.
Widowmaker.
There was the Widowmaker with the bandana. I was and the other was the cowboy hat, the Four Horsemen Barry. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was my
I
favorite
think
as
we've
well.
probably said his name 175 times now. I'm gonna go for 200 before the show's
Well,
over.
we got to keep the numbers up because
Yeah.
apparently we don't talk about him enough, or we talk about him too much. I can't
No.
remember what our
Apparently,
producer did. So,
yeah.
um, but
Dynamite
cool.
Kid. I'm gonna catch up with it with Tom Billington. Dynamite Kid. Yeah, there
So
we go.
yes, so now we switched to Dynamite Kid. And I remember watching the Dynamite Kid when he came into the WWF as part of the British Bulldogs, and
Is that
to
the
me
first
they were
time you saw him? Was because that's the first time I saw him. I had to go
yes,
back as a fan. I had to go back and find the VHS tapes of Calgary Stampede and New Japan.
New Japan, right?
Hmm.
And I didn't find that Dynamite Kid out for some years. And what really impressed me was, like you said, the guy had a lot of power in such a small frame compared to Davy Boy. But what I grew up on was, the suplex was, you pick a guy up and you hold him, and
Yeah, the standing vertical, or some people call it
starting,
the
yeah,
stalling. Yeah,
yeah. And then I watched Dynamite do that snap suplex, and I'm not saying he's the first one to do it, but man, when he did that, it literally. I mean, I think Gorilla Monsoon called it. It was literally lightning fast, and I thought, man, to generate all
hmm
of that power as a kid, I'm watching, right? To generate all of that power to lift even a big guy up. I mean, because he didn't just pick up small guys; he
Can I
picked up every.
snap? Can I snap suplex you next time I see you?
Well, you could try it.
I can. I can. I can. Don't
Well,
worry.
um, but that just impressed the hell out of me, and then everything else on top of that, the brawling that it did, and you can see a direct connection between the Dynamite Kid and Bret Hart, and they're almost the same exact wrestler when it comes to to their wrestling ability. The way Bret punches, the way Bret kicks, everything that he does really emulates the Dynamite Kid. And if that what's that game, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, you could probably do
Six
that with the
degrees of
Dynamite Kid.
Kevin Bacon.
There's a game that you could tie Kevin Bacon back to any actor using
Oh,
6 actors in between or something like
we
that.
should get
It's
Kevin
crazy.
Bacon on the show. Do we, is our viewership up? We got to get Kevin Bacon on here.
We should, yeah, and
He's a
we should probably
Philadelphia,
have some bacon and eggs while we're here too.
the
That would be cool.
Philadelphia guy, man. Come on, Howard. We're
Yes,
close enough to Philadelphia. We hang out on the street
we got to
corner
be
long
close.
enough.
We got to find out where he's at.
He's a
Um,
street musician.
all right, say, and he's a musician, and I'm sure he's got to like wrestling because it's Kevin Bacon.
I was
Why
going to
wouldn't he
say he
like
probably likes wrestling too. Yeah, they get Kevin Bacon on the show.
But
Exactly.
the Dynamite Kid to me just with his speed and his agility, and then of course obviously which was part of his downfall was that the high flying, the high impact stuff that he took, that diving headbutt. I don't
Yeah.
know how it didn't knock him out as well. Like I mean, I know now, I mean, obviously, but watching it again as a kid,
We had a
you know,
neck like a, geez, it was like,
right,
like my thigh. You know what I mean?
right,
It was
you know,
vicious
they
looking.
they just had they had it, and he had it, and everything that he did. I mean, he influenced, and again, I'm guessing because again, I don't have proof, but the styles of like guy we mentioned earlier, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, guys that kind of emulate him, a little bit in their wrestling
Well,
style.
let's we're allowed to say it, but Chris Benoit was directly
Yes, Chris
influenced
Benoit.
by
Yes, I actually
Dynamite
forgot
Kid.
about him. I can't believe I forgot about
Um,
him.
Yeah, so that was a style, that was a style that he would have never picked up if he wasn't a fan of Dynamite Kid.
Right.
Um, but you had, Dynamite was trailblazing with Mark Rocco, with rollerball Mark Rocco, with the original Tiger Mask, Satoru Sayama, who was a Carl Gotch disciple. So these are catch wrestling, real legit hook wrestling lineages. And Billington was part of that, coming training out of the Snake Pit in Wigan. They bring this style where the holds are legitimate, maybe not put on to really end the fight, but the holds are legitimate, the counters are legitimate. Um, Everything they were doing, even the bumps, the high impact bumps that they were taking, as you mentioned, shortened some careers. But guys, the Malenkos go tie into the Carl Gotch lineage. Joe Malenko was trained by Carl Gotch. And I'm not sure if Dean was or not, but either way, Dean became phenomenal. And all the light heavyweight, high paced, technical style kind of goes back to Dynamite and Tiger Mask, Dynamite and Rollerball Rocka, and it just was like those three guys were on the scene and there were other guys, but they were huge. I mean, in a time when WWF didn't recognize light heavyweights, they had an official WWF light heavyweight champion, which was Tiger Mask,
Right.
who defended it. And you looked this up for me, but I think he only defended it once or twice in Madison Square Garden, but it was a huge deal um, for him to defend that title. And then I think the rest, it was probably mostly overseas. But it began a revolution in the early 80s. I think that was between 80 and 83 that they were probably doing stuff like that. It was really early 80s.
No.
And by
Yeah.
93, go ahead.
No. Yeah. And I forgot where I was going. I lost it that quick.
Did you look? Oh, no, I thought you were looking it up. So by 93, that was really, we're starting to kick off the light heavyweight craze where Flying Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger are on WCW. Even the Great Muta, who was a bit bigger than those guys, was coming in with a really high flying, high impact style. Brad Armstrong was getting featured as not a super huge heavyweight guy. He was featured, Tim Horner. So you had all these American light heavyweight styles that were somewhat influenced by the Japanese style that was directly influenced by Dynamite Kid. So that's what I mean when I talk about really changing the game. And then really the time before that was George Wagner, because anything that came after that, the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, was a progression of what George had started. The big giant personas like superstar Billy Graham, who then
Right.
influenced Jesse Ventura, Hulk Hogan, even arguably Scott Steiner's later Big Papa Pump persona. There were certain guys that just really pioneered and trailblazed. Now, each one of those guys, I think, systemically took it a little step further. Superstar did something great. Hulk took it a little further. Jesse took it a little bit further. Man, arguably Jesse was good, but Hulk really took it a little bit further.
Hulk
Um,
took it to, almost to the extreme with,
yeah,
you know,
hmm
when you
at
look at,
least with mass appeal. I mean,
right.
he,
And it was,
you know,
and again, we've had this discussion. I don't know if it's on this show or the other one. Um, but he was really, the right time, the right place, the
right
right
place.
look,
Yeah,
everything.
just like
He
you.
had it all.
That's how you were telling me earlier how you got your wife. It was the right time, the right look, and the
Yeah,
right place. Right,
that's
exactly.
it. And and
And
there's no
God
going,
forbid she ever has cataract surgery.
right. Hope she never gets her eyes fixed.
Oh, good Lord, I know. I got a spare room, Howard, when she does. Don't worry.
Right. Well, yeah, you'll know, something happens if, 2 hours or so after the show, there's a little knock on your door. That'll be
Yeah,
me.
and you'd be driving. Then you had to drive 3 hours to work instead of two.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, and interesting because I did a quick search, and I don't know how impactful he was. In fact, I don't think he was very impactful here in the United States, but certainly in Mexico. I think he kind of changed the 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 wrestling business. Although, and again, I think wrestling is far more popular in Mexico than it is here in the United States, if you can believe that. I mean, it's insanely popular down there. Um, but the guy I'm thinking of is El Santo. I mean, going back to the 30s or 40s, um,
Yeah, yeah, they.
Mass Luchador had you know TV deals and movies, and before Hulk Hogan and all that kind of cornered the market. But as far as the Mexican style, the lucha libre style, um, I think he really revolutionized it for those that were wrestling south of the border.
Hmm.
Really opened up a lot of avenues for wrestlers that that they didn't have before, um, and certainly opportunities that were never been exposed to them. Just trying to give a little bit broader appeal to this. But again, I haven't seen a lot of his matches. There was a very few on YouTube, but I think El Santo in as far as it comes to to the lucha style, again was just second to none. And then again, influencing, I'm sure, guys like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and Psychosis and things like that, because the guy was an absolute legend um, in Mexico.
Yeah, I think there definitely was an influence from the lucha libre side into the American culture, but you still look at would a guy as small as Rey Mysterio be as big of a star as he is without what Dynamite and Tiger Mask were popularizing around the world, and especially in the United States. And that's why I think, and I don't know the answer to that. I would suspect maybe not. Um, but again, he's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. Ray is, and I think that he was so revolutionary when he hit American TV in the I guess the mid '90s. I guess it was by now. Um, Doing all the cool like ranas and the flips and being able to hold and counter hold on the ground, and also being really 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 abnormally small. He is the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Even in lucha culture. So Mil Mascaras was not that small. You know, Dr. Wagner. I think Blue Demon was a little was a more a stockier guy. So some of the legends that had come before Ray, even Rey Mysterio. The original Rey Mysterio was a stockier guy. So when Rey Mysterio Jr., who we now know as Rey Mysterio, hit the scene, I still looked at it like this was an evolution of Tiger Mask and Dynamite to Jushin Liger, Ultimo Dragon, Brian Pillman, Brad Armstrong. Um, then the next thing you see, escalation is Psychosis and Rey Mysterio.
Right.
I mean, again, it's kind of like you go back to the guitar analogy. There's Van Halen 1, the needle drops, changes the game. And then you could pick up a plethora of hard rock albums. There was the Yngwie Malmsteen neoclassical stuff. There was Randy Rhoads himself, who was innovating and trailblazing on the neoclassical side for Ozzy. Um, Tons of guitar. Steve Vai, Zappa was still on the scene. He was still alive, doing all the crazy jazz, funk fusion stuff. That it so parallels the way that wrestling kind of evolved and the way the different styles came together to say, okay, would we have been watching CM Punk versus AJ Styles last night if it weren't for Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid? The answer might very well be no, because as the announcers were pointing out, and I thought they did a great job of the history of the two guys wrestling, talking about they weren't the biggest guys. They were told early on in their career, well, there's probably going to be a glass ceiling because you're a certain size. Yeah, guys your size don't go on to the big time and become worldwide stars, and they both did. So, but why? What are talented? Sure, absolutely, but who opened the door? And I think both those guys would probably throw some nods to all the folks that we've been talking about tonight in terms of what would have happened if Dynamite Kid was never a wrestler, Because here's the thing, people would say, well, somebody else would have done it. Well, would somebody else have done what Eddie Van Halen did? Would somebody else have had that tone, that swagger, nobody did it ever before or since?
Right, I say, if you say, well, if Eddie didn't do it, well then who? Well, who's done it since? Like you can't compare,
right,
that, because nobody has done what he's done since then. Even though you have, Eddie Van Halen to look back on, you say, oh, this is the guy that I want to emulate. This is the guy that I want to be like.
Would we have gotten the shred? There was a shred label called Shrapnel that had guys like Vinnie Moore, who went on to play for UFO after Michael Schenker, who was in the Scorpions, left. Richie Kotzen. I mean, Yngwie Malmsteen himself from. Would we have had that shred culture, that super technical, super fast, fireworks type of music to listen to? Would we have had that? That's what, Rey Mysterio is one of those guys in terms of their guitar playing. Rey's wrestling was like that,
Right.
And the cool thing about Rey was he's like a chameleon. He's evolved. He's changed his style multiple times throughout his career, depending on what injuries he's faced. Body weight, he got heavier over the years. Age based on, your body getting just worn down, just the Father Time. Rey's changes his style a lot, but he's still exciting, and he still tells a story. So much like the guitarists we're talking about, there's a connection to, number one, the mask, which is lucha, and then Japanese had a bit of a culture for mask wrestlers too, and I was just fascinated by the evolution of what happened after Dynamite Kid. Once he hit the scene, and then not to mention the British Bulldogs themselves changed the tag team scene.
Right.
Hold that the power speed phenomenon. Would you have had the Rockers? Maybe would you have had teams like the Midnight and the Rock and Roll Express, who were kind of in the same time, but they all had to be influencing each other. You had the power, the finesse.
But nobody had what you're talking about.
Nobody had done. No,
power.
They didn't have a Davy Boy type of power. But you looked at.
But also, neither one of them had Dynamite's power either. I mean, they were great. Don't get me wrong. Ricky and Robert were great. Bobby Eaton. Dennis Condrey. Stanley, and they were all great.
I mean, there was Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo.
There was Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo. Yeah, how can we forget that?
Exactly.
The U.S. Express. But using Dynamite and Gorgeous George as our bar, right? Like they're the top tier guys. Where does somebody like Antonio Inoki line up with those guys?
To me, Inoki was more influential from the promotion side.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Is it just the promotional side, or
no? Because I think Inoki was very, very, very historically significant in a lot of ways. I mean, he was pioneering. He wasn't the first, but he was pioneering some of the mixed martial arts stuff in the 70s. he had exhibition with I believe it was Muhammad Ali. Why is that slipping my mind? I
Yes.
think he and Muhammad Ali had an exhibition, and Ali himself was a huge wrestling fan, influenced by Bam Gorgeous George. So I think Inoki's role is very unique. He didn't change his style. He promoted. He gave guys a chance to work a different style. So you had your Dynamite kids, you had Tiger Mask, which was created by from a tiger or from a comic book character. So the Japanese at the time, and I'm supposing they still do. I don't follow the culture of wrestling much anymore, but they would take these guys, like Big Van Vader. They took these comic book these anime characters, and they would make them in the real life wrestling personas, like Jushin Thunder Liger. Became a live wrestling character, based on
Right.
anime and comics and things from the culture. That's where I think Inoki falls into it. Is he Inoki kind of bridged a little bit of a gap too between shoot fighting and pro wrestling. So, you know, he had a background in some legit grappling and um,
I thought and I heard rumors, and I don't know what to back it up, but I thought he did some of his training at a young age over in Brazil,
he
but
could have.
I don't know
I
that
can't
for sure.
remember. I can't remember, but I want to say he was one of Carl Gott's guys too, because Carl Gott's trained a lot of guys for God, New Japan. I can't remember now. I should have looked it up. But Gott's trained a number of guys. He wasn't a huge star in the States because his persona was very stoic, trunks and boots. The story is the lure is that people were literally afraid to get in the ring with him because they just didn't want to get hurt because he was legitimately dangerous. I
Yes.
think his
Oh,
biggest
Inoki did train at the JWA dojo under Carl Gotch.
JWA. Okay, I couldn't remember the promotion. Yeah, and so a lot of these guys got, but Baba and a lot of them came out of the same camp, and then you had the All Japan New Japan rivalry, which is storied. All very influential in American wrestling. Um, they would later fight over Dynamite Kid and and Davey Boy Smith. They would trade back and forth between promotions and um, yeah. So I'm trying to place Inoki in the history fairly because he definitely is very influential. I don't think he changed the game in terms of style. I just think that he was more influential, at least from my opinion, I'd be interested to hear what folks think in comments or whatever, where Inoki kind of falls in the history of the sport. But I look at him more as the booker, promoter,
Right.
bringing a lot of guys into the spotlight. I mean, he took, you know, brought Flair to Japan and did a lot of stuff with Flair. He did stuff with Harley. So they were definitely very, very kind to the American wrestlers. I used to hear all the time that American wrestlers were in demand in Japan. Like you would get a, Stan Hansen, you got the Miracle Violence connection, Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Gordy. Again, not directly influenced in style themselves by Dynamite Kid, but not, again, this is the impact because Eddie Van Halen did just everybody wasn't just trying to copy his tapping style. They wanted to write songs like he was writing. They wanted to sound like he did on guitar. They wanted to know how he was getting his tone, what guitar was he using, what amp did he use, what pedal did he use, what microphone did they record on,
Right.
what studio were they in. When you look at it like that, everybody kind of wanted to know, well, wow, like what did Dynamite do? Like what did Tiger Mask do? Like, okay, well, all right, maybe we're not small guys and we're not going to wrestle that style, but what do we do to carve out our own niche and be use their impact and their influence, across multiple countries and continents. There was just a bigger impact than Dynamite being able to do a diving headbutt or a snap suplex or you know some of the wrist lock and reversals and arm bars and takedowns that he would do.
Right.
Um, there was just a bigger impact, and that's why I kind of thought he was a good topic of discussion for a rabbit hole. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we could
No,
dig all day
absolutely.
long because every guy, I think every single wrestler that we've mentioned could probably you could trace a bunch of lineage back to just them, right?
Right. Right.
But then you're trying to you're almost trying to go back to like Adam and Eve from like humanity. It's like let's
Right.
pull in the branches now, and it's almost
Right.
impossible, right?
So I'll give you, and I only know because I looked it up, but we'll stick with the Gorgeous George
Okay.
Ali connection. What year did that match take place between Inoki and Ali? Just a year. I
76
didn't.
was it?
76. Absolutely. See, you
Yeah.
got bonus points for that.
Hmm. Okay.
1976.
I thought so, yeah. Because I was very young and I don't remember the match. I'd have been 4. Jeez. I don't remember the match when it happened. I remember as I got into wrestling in the early 80s and started watching the WWF and the WrestleMania and Ali, like they were, then you started to read the magazines about that match, you know.
I
The
saw
magazines
it
were
on
important.
I don't know what year it was, because it wasn't actually because I was 5 at the time, but I
Hmm.
remember it had to be in the early 80s.
Okay.
Watching one of like greatest moments of Wide World of Sports, um, with Howard Cosell, and that was one of them. And still being young, I didn't know who Inoki was, but I mean, obviously, I knew who Ali was, and didn't quite understand why you would bring a pro boxer over, um, to wrestling. But listen, I mean, like, and this goes back to Inoki's booking side. It sold a ton of tickets, and people still talk about it, you know, today. And I remember listening to Ali. I don't know if it was in Sports Illustrated or one of those magazines that the reason he stayed on his back, was it him? No, was it Inoki? No, Ali was on his back, right? I can't. I, your mic cut out. Oh,
My
yeah,
mic was off.
yeah. Inoki was on his back the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it was it was alluded to the fact that, and I don't know if Ali said it or whatever, but he didn't want to get knocked down, because he knew he couldn't stand toe to toe. So his only option was, to fight Ali from his back, and
Hmm.
and that, even that spectacle, everybody bought it. Like, everybody was drawn into that. Um, but what, and it's a little, little piece of sports history. But I want to kind of, I know we're kind of driving and we're going full speed ahead, but I want to see what happens when I kind of throw this thing
Don't
into reverse a little
don't
bit.
hit a pole.
No, no, no. I want to see what happens when we throw this in reverse, because I want to switch gears a little bit. And again, using the impact on the business,
Hmm.
as far as how meaningful they were, and people that they influenced. Switching gears to the one and only Gordon Solie.
Okay.
Where does Gordon Solie? Where does he rank in changing the business from the, now we're on the announcer side. Now we're on the play by play side. And I have my thoughts, but I kind of want to pick your brain a little
Well, I
bit.
always looked at Gordon as complete like sports professionalism, legitimate. Like he brought a lot of legitimacy to professional wrestling, and maybe was a bridge between that really old classical catch as catch can style to the showmanship side of
That
it. He was between. He was. When he was calling matches, you had NWA champions like Harley and Dory and Kerry Funk and even Flair early on, and he was doing stuff for Mid Atlantic with Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine. So there was a real legitimacy that Gordon brought. Did he change the game though? Like, who was an announcer changed the game? I think Gordon's important, extremely important to the announcing side, but especially for old time wrestling fans of anything like 80s and mid 80s and before, did he change the game though? That's a hard question for me.
I think that first of all, Gordon. Now we see commentators. There's a play-by-play and a color commentator. It's been that way.
Yeah.
Most fans will think forever, but
Hmm.
Gordon did it kind of by himself, and he kind of was that bridge when if you listen to older matches, go back into the 60s into the 50s, it's kind of always he's got him in a wrist lock, countered, and it really is a very much a play by play, as if you're listening to it on the radio or whatever. And I think Gordon kind of took it to the next level, and I loved his expression, especially when the guy would get all bloody. He'd call it, he's got the crimson mask on because his face is all covered in blood.
Yeah.
Said that about Ric Flair a lot. Um, and I think he took it to that next level, added another element, like you said, that showmanship, that allowed the business to continue to grow. And I think if you look at guys like back in the day, Jim Ross and even Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon.
I was going to
um,
say the to me the game changers were Gorilla and Bobby, um, because they were still legitimate, but they were a legitimate comedy duo too. So you were able to
right.
get the legitimate sports side out of those guys, and then in the same breath, you're hysterically laughing because they played off each other so well, and they were really funny together. So I think they changed the blueprint for what announcing would become, which is very entertaining in general.
Right.
Um, Gordon was kind of very dry, very straightforward, very
Yes.
serious. But that's what wrestling needed in those days, in the 70s and early 80s. As we move on and you get this more entertainment-based style, I really don't think Gordon would have worked in uh, the blossoming WWF atmosphere of, big bright lights and camera, up close, like bright cameras and, you know, Liberace,
Right.
like you
Right.
needed
Right.
um, Gorilla and Bobby to really take the announcing into the next atmosphere or
And
next
that is because
stratosphere.
like you said, you had Gorilla, who's already an established wrestler,
Hmm.
for all intents and
Bobby
purposes, a
was too.
legend.
Bobby was an established wrestler manager by that point too. So people knew
Right.
who they were.
And but Gorilla kind of gave us that serious side, that
Hmm.
technical side, because we don't often think of Bobby as a wrestler, right? Although he did,
Hmm.
had a decent career, in the AWA and then he transitions into management. But Gorilla gave you that technical good guy, babyface commentary, knew all of the rules, um, where Bobby knew how to break all the rules, and almost made it like justifiable that okay, I understand why the bad guy did that, but I still don't agree with it. Although Bobby would make a compelling point, you
Hmm.
know, and try to get you to see it his way. Although we never did. Um, I think that they were again right time, right place.
Hmm.
Um, for what the business was doing I mean, it was exploding at that point where Gordon, it was expanding, but it hadn't really blown up yet. And yeah, I think you're right. I think Gordon although important, he's that important link between the past and the future. He's I always picture him in the studio in a smoke filled arena, which now we don't smoke inside the arenas anymore, so that's gone. Um, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe the bright lights, that what's that? The bright lights in the big city, um,
Hmm.
wouldn't have fit Gordon's personality. Wouldn't have fit his style. But again, an important link in the chain, and moving into Heenan and Gorilla. Of course, before that we had Vince and Jesse, and then Jesse and Gorilla, and none of that worked as well as Gorilla and Bobby did,
Mm-mm.
and
I
you know
like
and everything that they did.
I did like Jesse with Gorilla. I used to love he would always call him Gino because his nickname was Gino.
Right,
It, it was funny because they when I'm listening to it as a kid, the announcing was more straightforward. It was more legitimate, like a legitimate sportscaster would call I don't want to say legitimate, like a mainstream wrestling sportscaster would call a game of some type. And
right,
a lot of the announcers coming up through the 80s when I was a kid and really, really heavy into watching it were still pretty much like that. Like, very young Tony Schiavone. David Crockett was a little over the top, but Tony was really liked his work back then. He was really came across as legitimate. He was a legit sports, and I don't want to use the word legit. Let's throw that out. Edit, boop, There we go. Barry Windham. That's what we'll put right over top of
yeah,
that.
right. Barry Windham.
Um, we he was calling baseball matches. He was calling
Right,
mainstream sports also. He was I will say legitimate sportscaster because he wasn't just a wrestling guy, right? So there were aspects of his announcing that were really legit, and I think that's what the product called for. That's what they were doing. When you had Bob Caldwell or Lance Russell, they brought a lot of class to it. But they didn't have a lot of showmanship. I
right.
feel like I almost remember, unless this was like another parallel universe, Lance Russell briefly in WWF. I just remember seeing him in a tuxedo, and I don't know where else he would have been in a tux at, but maybe. But I don't think that they were bringing the over the top Hollywood type of style because they were really based in realism. The way they called the matches was from a realistic point of view, and it again all very important, but I don't know they were game changers. Bobby and Gorilla were the game changers for me. And I don't know that there was another duo or anything after that. I think I know a lot of people, and I did very much enjoy it because it is a hard job to do solo. I thought Joey Styles did a good job for for ECW. Um, it didn't seem out of place to have one guy calling stuff because he was really good at it. And he
Right.
covered everything. But changing the game, man, there's so many facets of before I'm ready to say, oh, this guy changed because everybody that we talk about that on here is great, but realistically,
But not as great
fundamentally,
as too.
Barry Windham that
There
they
we go.
did change the Barry Windham. He was my favorite wrestler growing up. If I say Barry Windham too many times, just start beeping it like I cursed. But anyway, but let's be realistic. Like, he was fantastic, but I would never argue with somebody that he changed the game from a fundamental
Right.
standpoint. He was great, you know. Ricky Steamboat as well, awesome. Probably the
Oh, yeah.
one of my favorites for best in ring, performer of all time. But again, he was innovating, not necessarily changing the game. Completely
Right.
erased the slate. Like when that, I'm telling you, if you weren't born in the 70s and you don't know the impact of what happened when Howard said, we're talking about how we opened the show with Van Halen 1, when the needle comes down and Running with the Devil starts playing, it changed everything, and not just rock music, but popular music, period. Um, everything about how songs were recorded, what people wanted to wear on stage, the guitars they wanted to play, the sound. That's what I'm talking about in wrestling. As great as these guys are, I don't know that anybody other than George changed the entire game because now everybody needed that. They wanted that big star. They wanted that TV star. They wanted to make the money. Now you get the blueprints for the Buddy Rogers and the, you know, um, the flamboyant classic heel style that came afterwards. Everybody from Magnificent Morocco to Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff to Ravishing Rick Rude to Nature Boy Ric Flair, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. That's the type of influence Gorgeous George had. And same with Dynamite Kid, everybody from Benoit, Malenko, you know, Guerrero, eh, you know, Ultimo Dragon, Jushin Thunder Liger, you know, arguably even a bit of the Luchadors, just really changed the way that guys were getting in the ring and fundamentally putting together a wrestling match, you know?
Right. No, yeah, I mean, and it would be hard to argue for anybody really else, you know, on this list because of again their influence and again their complete body of work. Not talking about just one, you know, aspect of it. You know, Hulk Hogan had his charisma, um, not technical, not
Well,
not
that
a
I-
per se, but he had charisma, and that's
I'll
what
six
they
degrees
needed.
Hulk Hogan too, because Hulk, as great as he was, he built the house and changed the game in terms of payday. But from his pure persona and the way things were the same way with Stone Cold Steve Austin, you know, elevated again. Everybody was getting rich when they were working with Stone Cold, right?
Right.
But the Hulk Hogan persona would directly tie back to superstar Billy Graham, which, if you follow it loosely enough, goes back to Gorgeous George because again, it was that big flamboyant heel. It was different, but the blueprint
Right.
was the big flamboyant, not big, but just a bigger, larger than life personality heel who was people just wanted to see get beat up. Like they were paying money to see Gorgeous George get beat up. You know, people were paying money to come see superstar Billy Graham get beat up. Um, they changed, um, not Gorgeous George fundamentally started that change of, you got the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, who was a really, really, really fantastic heel, just a really good performer.
Well,
And
I just did a
that's
quick.
a what's that?
I just did a quick again. Our third co-host here that nobody sees, the Chat GPT. You
Oh,
know, um, it is, and I mean it's a short list, and they said it's not inclusive, but it's
mhm.
names that you know everybody's going to recognize, and some of them we've mentioned. Um, so examples of wrestlers influenced by the Dynamite Kid: Chris Benoit, Brian Pillman, Owen Hart, Jay
Yep.
Lethal, Bret Hart,
Oh, Owen Hart,
Davey
jeez,
Richards,
Davey,
Daniel
yeah,
Bryan. Like
yeah.
they and they all go back to that light heavyweight yet impactful style of wrestling that Davey Boy was. I mean, Dynamite was
Hell,
phenomenal at.
I neglected to, man, I need a slap on the wrist because I neglected to mention any of the independent guys that were influenced, like Davey. Well, you know, they did go on to do some national TV stuff, but man, I left out a big guy. I left out Owen Hart. Geez, yeah, Owen was definitely influenced by the kid, and yeah, Daniel. I mean, yeah, right on. Like, good going, Chat GPT. So, what would we do without Chat
Right. Yeah.
GPT? You know,
We'd be
we're
up
gonna
here
be out of
just
a
two idiots talking
job.
wrestling.
We're not even we're gonna be
What's
out of a
that?
job. It'll be like an AI thing of like roast beef and a bow tie, and like be
Yeah.
yipping and yapping with Chat GPT
It'll
talking
be yeah.
along. You know. I just came up with an idea. You know, our backstage producers working on that right now. They won't need us anymore, Howard. Just be a big piece of roast beef and a bow tie talking about,
And a
you know,
bow tie, just
wrestling.
talking.
Yeah.
We're, so, ladies and
I got
gentlemen,
a
thank
joke
you. It's
for
been
you.
great. This will be our last show. We'll be replaced next
Yeah.
week.
So a big slab of roast beef and a bow tie walk into a bar. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
That's where the joke ends because it's not funny now. Now
But
we're
yeah,
out of work.
but again,
Is it work though
when
if
you
we're
think
not?
about what's that?
Is it work if we're not getting a payday yet? Or is our payday
It's
yeah,
volunteer work. It's volunteer
volunteer
work.
work? Okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's not about the money. It's about how many lives we change, Mozart. That's what it's about.
That's
How many
such
lives we
BS.
affect, just like we're talking about tonight.
It's
How many
always about the
lives
money.
we affect,
It's always about the money. Wait till Steve gets the bill. That's not come due
right?
yet. Yeah,
But when you think of and again, listeners, if we're way off, or if you think we're right on, or maybe there's somebody that we neglected,
we have
drop it
no
in the
idea.
comments.
We're just talking.
Right? We're just talking. We're just
It's
two
just two
guys,
two
you
dudes in a
know,
bar, a bow tie, and a piece of roast
right? Just
beef.
spitballing some ideas,
Spitballing.
talking nonsense.
Let
But
me let me holler
we
at you, Howard.
right. Let me holla at you. So there have been literally thousands of pro wrestlers, right? At every level. We have the Hulk Hogan's and we have the Ricky Steamboats and all of these guys, Randy Savages, Roddy Pipers, Andre the Giants. Yet we narrowed a pretty comprehensive list, I think, down to two wrestlers. Really,
I just
Gorgeous
can't believe
George
you
and the
said let me
Karate Kid.
holler at you. Wait, Pat. Oh wait, we're live without a net.
Cut, right? We can't go back in time. We
The only
can't.
thing the only thing we can do is just just put up banners. Boom. Put up
Right.
graphics.
The, the,
Oh my
the
God.
well, and then he's got to have a disclaimer that the comments made on here are no way a reflection of the comments or
Of,
beliefs
of,
of the Lariat Network.
the Lariat Network, right? And
Just so we don't get sued. These are just two idiots doing a podcast. In fact, it's probably going to be
so
our
wait a minute,
title
that's the
next week.
name of the
It's
title.
not
Is
down.
just going to be too
It's
idiots.
well, it's not down the rabbit hole anymore. It's two idiots doing a podcast. I think.
Two idiots talking about stupid shit.
Right.
What the, what, wait,
Oh
why,
gosh.
how did you derail this train? We actually had somewhat of a plan tonight, and you still, it's,
That's how it goes. I don't even know where it went off the rails, but all of a
nowhere
sudden
went
we're
off the
headed
rails
we're
either,
plummeting
you know?
somewhere.
It,
And listen, and listen, and honestly, I think that's why the people listen and they watch.
I
It's
hope
kind of
so
like
too.
NASCAR, Mozart. They don't care who wins. They just want to see the car
They
crash.
just want to see
They
the
want to see
crash.
somebody crash.
Exactly.
And they wait for us to crash and they
Oh,
finally get their moment
they don't have to wait too
and
long when
they
it comes
have.
to us. Yeah.
Oh no, usually 5 seconds into the show we have our first one and then
5 seconds in,
it's
there's a
how many
fire. Yeah.
yeah, somebody somewhere's got a running tab of how many crashes we go through on a show
Woo.
and
Wait,
as
what's
we're
the
doing
thing
our
now? Isn't the thing now those botch tapes? Like we'll be all over that, just like we fell off a top
oh,
rope or
we'll be all over.
yeah.
Look, they botched it again.
Like I
And
went
listen,
for
it could be an entire 2 hour tape on just one show that we do. We'd have a whole library of botches,
it'd be like me
and
going
it'd be
through the
like
seated
botchamania.
my famous seated drop kick and missing and just landing right on my back, you know. There you go. And I say seated because
Oh God,
because I'm still working on my height, you know.
right. You
I
got to
was
get a little bit of
influenced,
air.
here's a little fact. I was influenced by Dynamite Kid. Like I would try to emulate those armbar like arm wringer sequences he would do, and about halfway through I'd figure out like I don't even know where I'm at right now, and we just throw a punch, bam. Hmm.
When all else fails, go back to a punch or a headlock, right?
I mean,
That's
yeah,
our default.
and the best thing is because you got a warning for the closed fist, you could do it right in front of the referee. So as I'm getting out wrestling,
Right.
and I'm trying to work in the wrist lock reversal, arm bar, it arm drag, hammer lock, headlock. I take the arm bar like I know what I'm doing. It gets reversed again. Bam, just punch him right in the face. Referee's on you. So I took an influence, but
Right.
I just could. I took the influence. I just couldn't finish the influence. How about that?
I did not inhale. I just took a little hit. I did
Yeah,
not inhale.
I did right, exactly. I
But and again, dropping this thing into neutral and drive again. And we talked
oh
about this a
Lord,
couple of days ago.
did we
I
drop the
saw a
transmission yet?
Almost, almost. I can smell it. It's burning a little bit.
Smell some oil
But
burning in this sucker.
I I saw a like a minute and a half clip of, and the tagline is what got me into it. It's the most devastating move in pro wrestling,
What
and
was it?
all it was it was take after take, and not take, but match after match of Roddy Piper just poking somebody in the eye. That's all he did. It was like 2 minutes of Piper
I
poking
mean,
people in the eye.
listen,
But man, when he did it, I was like, oh my gosh! Now I'm watching it now. I'm like, oh, like how did he do that? Like, let me, it was amazing that something
yeah,
that
man,
simple,
Three Stooges stuff.
could, and Piper did it probably better than most.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, we've taken all of these wrestlers,
Hmm.
thousands of them, throughout history,
And
and
minimize their
really narrowed
impact.
it
Great
down.
job, Howard.
Right, right. And narrowed it down to two. It's amazing that we couldn't come up with more than two that have really revolutionized and redefined
Well,
pro
and
wrestling, like
it
Gorgeous George and the
probably
Dynamite Kid.
it probably is it well, it's not probably, it's opinion. So,
Right.
listeners might say, well, what about this guy? Like, what about that guy? And they probably have a really valid point, but for me, in totality, I just couldn't come up with it with anyone. I mean, I'd forgotten about Gorgeous George, but other than that, I couldn't come up with anybody except Dynamite. In totality, because again, as much as
Right.
Stone Cold and Hulk and you know had elevated um, the mainstream appeal of wrestling for sure, they didn't fundamentally change a style. Like, as a matter of
Right.
fact, it's funny because by the time Austin was at the peak of his career creatively as Stone Cold, he was doing a lot less than he ever did working his way
Well,
up.
he was at the end of his career at that
It pretty
point.
much
Like
at the
when
end
he
of his career,
finally
yeah.
made
It
it.
was it was pretty much punches, kicks, and a Thez press. Was about the
Right.
extent of but he made it so exciting and just the whole persona. Same way with Hulk Hogan. And here in the United States, Hulk didn't need to do anything more than, shake his body, point his finger, and rip his shirt and drop a leg. You know, um,
And for as much grief as we, and I say we, I'm talking about, wrestling
you.
fans in general, get right me, give Hulk Hogan grief, on his inability. Watch his Japan matches.
Where's the soapbox
They're
at? Get the soapbox out, Howard.
right.
It's time.
There's they're they're literally, and I'm not going to call them classics by no stretch, but they're 10, 15, yes, I'm saying 10, 15 minute matches,
Hmm.
you know,
He did
um,
more.
where Hulk Hogan is wrestling for 10 to 15 minutes, not 4 or 5, it's a leg drop, you, he had decent matches in Japan, but it wasn't, Japan didn't want what we wanted here in the United States. We wanted that get beat down for 3 minutes, Hulk up, rip, you rip your t-shirt, drop a leg, play to the crowd, and you're
Yeah.
out. Um, but we ate it up.
Hmm.
But again, didn't change the game, just changed, his persona a little bit here.
You know what
Um,
I missed though?
and
You just made me think of
what's that?
this. When Because now everything's a tap out, right? Which is like, okay, so we talked about this with the Gunther
So
finish, Cena
stupid.
finish. You don't tap out to a sleeper, you pass out to a sleeper. So I
Right.
missed the one, the two, and then the Hogan finger. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
I bought
I
it. I
forgot
bought
about
into
the
it.
Hogan finger.
Yeah.
But there
I mean, it
was
was.
pre pre leg drop. There was, I think it was in 1983. I want to say, I have to go back and look. Hulk Hogan as the heel, Tito Santana wrestling. I don't know, had to be in either Madison Square Garden or the Spectrum, um, in Philly.
Was that when his
And
sister
Hogan hits
Reba
the leg drop.
McEntire sang?
Right now, so Hogan drops the leg, but it wasn't his finisher yet.
No.
So of
Did
course
Tito
Tito
kick
kicks
out?
out.
Damn right.
Tito kicks out,
Go Tito.
and like, yeah, and
Not talking about Tito Jackson either. Don't get confused. That's Howard's other boy.
no, we're
You
talking
know.
about Tito Santana, or as Jesse would say, Chico Santana. Somebody called him Chico.
Chico, yeah.
Can I say Chico? Am I allowed? I don't
I
know. I
mean,
guess we'll find
you
out.
know, you're just going to dub over it with Barry Windham anyway. So, you know,
Right, right. We're just gonna, yeah. So anything that we say that's off color will always be Barry Windham, whether it's a curse
exactly.
word or whatever. He'll bleep it with Barry
I
Windham.
can't,
In
look,
fact,
I
it would
can't
be
help
nice
it.
he,
There's a lot of reference to be made to his body of work. You know what I'm saying? Like he was very underrated. People
to
don't
B
give him the
Dubs.
credit,
Call him
you
B
know.
Dubs. How's that?
B dubs,
B
exactly.
Dubs.
You know, I mean,
And it's on the TV shows like they used to put the word censored across their mouth
yeah.
when we say Barry Windham or say something off. That's what's going to come out. It's going to be Barry Windham.
I wonder if we're gonna
Across
get
where we're
beeped. It's gonna be like beep beep beep. It's gonna be like a Dennis Coralluzzo like promo. Like everything will be like beeped, like beep 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 beep. Like Dennis would cut a
you'll hear about
promo and
every
it'd be
third
like,
word.
yeah, it would be like, for the fans who don't know who Dennis is, you do a Google search. Just a great character of a dude. Resurrected the National Wrestling Alliance in the early 2000s with Dan the Beast Severn
Yeah.
as the champion. But Dennis couldn't cut a promo without like 8,000 cusses. Beep 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 beep. That's what I aspire to be on this show is a lot of beeps. You know.
Which I believe Dan Severn won. I think he won that title in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, I believe.
I think it was. I know he
I,
walked it to the ring. He wore that NWA title to the ring when he one of the super fights he won for UFC. He was UFC champion and NWA champion at the same time.
wow,
Google it. That was a long time ago.
nice.
I can't remember. He trained with Al
Yeah, I
Snow.
don't remember, but
Hmm.
Cherry Hill is ringing a bell. Um, and I don't know.
That's where you probably went to get
Oh,
ice cream when you were watching the show.
probably. I mean, listen, I'm world renowned
You look like you're hard at work
ice
over
cream
there.
eater.
Like I'm over here trying to keep my phone
There,
alive,
there,
you know?
there used to be a place in the Deptford Mall called Farrell's, and it was ice cream. It was an ice cream place, an old style ice cream
Mm,
place, and the ice cream was phenomenal,
that's diabetes
and
waiting to
I
happen
was
right
like the
there.
ice cream eating champion.
I mean, well, it's a
Where
good thing because you don't have to chew it. You just swallow it. If it were roast beef, you'd have been on your way to
just
the
swallow it.
hospital.
That's all. I was there was no fear of choking or any of that.
Oh my God.
Where is it?
What
I'm
are you
trying to
looking
look
up
it up and I
now?
can't find it.
Are you looking up wrestling
The
history? Or are you looking
when
up ice cream shops? Oh, for the love of God.
um,
This is
what's the
what I
matter?
get, people.
It's our show. I can look up
What
whatever
I
I
get. Looking up ice cream shops.
want.
What do you get to send the fans of the ice cream shop? I hope we're
Yeah,
entertaining
why not?
because you're
I
entertaining
can't
the
find it. I'll look later.
I didn't think
Or
you
maybe
would,
producer Steve will put the date up there when he
which
finds
I
it when
just
when Dan Severn won the NWA title.
oh,
Or
so
no,
you were
wait,
looking for something legitimate. Okay. I thought you were just looking for ice
yeah.
cream.
Or was
All
that
right.
or was that Chris Candido? Was Chris Candido NWA champ?
Yeah, but I don't know when. Yeah, I don't
Maybe
even
that
know
was the
half the
one.
dates I
The
wrestled.
NWA title was won in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Um, I
By
just don't know by
who?
who.
Yeah. See, you're not a historian. You're a historian. Me, I've been hit on the head too many times. I can't remember anything. Some of I blame it on the time Jim sent me to the grocery store to get a cookie sheet, and he said, "Well, you know how you test them, right?" And I said, "No." He said, just bang it on your head real light. Just don't get caught in the aisle. People look at you like you're stupid. Well, what did I do? I headbutted it in the aisle, put a big dent in it, and some old ladies walking in the aisle looking at me like I was crazy. I was like, "What? I'm buying it." You know? There
Right?
you go.
You're right.
Wrestling
I'm
history
buying
right
this. Leave
there.
me alone.
Wrestling history right there. Got to get your cookie sheet so you can take
So
them.
it looks like it was Chris Candido in Cherry Hill, New Jersey,
Oh, the great Chris
1994.
Candido. Yeah, there you go. 94. Wow.
And listen, we're just trying to
Hmm.
throw out as many wrestler names as we can, so Steve has to put up all kinds of
I didn't
pictures and
even
stuff.
realize we were doing that until you brought it to my attention. So now that you brought it to my attention, it's like I
You
can't
didn't
stop.
realize we were mentioning Barry Windham like 100 times
I
and
I
all of that.
didn't until
Like,
you told me that. I thought, is that really the most most mentioned grappler on our great show about
well,
the
got a
great
lot
sport of
of
wrestling?
love for B Dubs. I mean,
I mean,
how
I
can you not
do.
like B Dubs?
I don't know. I mean,
But
they have good wings. Oh wait, you're not talking about them. I got you.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm talking about the other
Not
BW,
this time.
Barry Windham.
We gotta have a, you know what we gotta do? We gotta have a food critic show. Should be like, what's it called? Like instead of like beat Bobby Flay, you beat like meet Sweats Morgan. You know, like somebody can outcook you. So what we do, we
Bring,
would
we call it Bring the Beef. How's that?
bring the
Bring
beef,
the beef.
beef and bow ties. You know, for the chick magnet bow tie
Right
and
there you go.
the beef.
Beef and
Yeah,
bow ties.
yeah. That'll be that's what
Look at
we'll
that.
call the
See,
book.
we are creative
Steve,
geniuses here.
Steve, can you trademark
Well,
that? Can you poor man trademark that and mail it to yourself? Beef and bow ties. Write it down. That way we got
maybe not
proof.
a genius part, but we are
Well,
pretty creative. I don't know about the
I
genius part,
know.
but
Listen, we
you
better
know,
reel this thing in and get
but
it home because if not,
yeah, yeah.
we're gonna get cut off, and we won't get
Steve's
any of
going
the
to cut us off in an hour and a half anyway. We'll be in the middle of talking and it'll just stop
we won't
people,
get any
and it's because
production.
we're right.
Listen,
We're reined into to a 90-minute time limit.
I'm a red
So
hot
we'll
mess,
go a
you know.
90-minute Broadway, as they say, and
Oh,
that'll be it.
you broke out the old Broadway term. Tell them what it means, meat sweats.
See?
Tell the fans a little
It
insider
it
on
means to
what
go
it.
the time limit.
Does
You
it
go
go
the
to
time
time
limit
limit?
in your
Yes,
match.
it does. Exactly.
Yeah, see,
Like, you
I
know,
know a
you
little
walk
something,
into
something. Let me
it's
holler at
nothing
you.
like walking into the dressing room for the first time and you look at the lineup sheet and it's like, you know, the Broadway and I'm thinking, I don't even know how to dance. I'm just kidding.
Right? We're going out in the street. We're taking this outside.
Where are we going? No, I'm just kidding. Um, no, I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know the last time I heard that. Hey, you're bringing back the old school
Yeah,
terminology, you know?
the only time I hear it is like when I listen to a Cornette podcast and he
I
talks
think,
about,
yeah,
because he goes over
matches.
the cards and stuff, and he's like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
they won a 30-minute Broadway with the Road Warriors, or
Wow.
60-minute Broadway with the Rock and Roll Express.
Hmm.
That's where I picked it up from.
Yeah.
So
I did like an
drop a
eight
little
minute
knowledge
Broadway.
on everything.
I did like an 8 minute Broadway with a buffet once until they shut me down.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all I could go.
Yeah, I did one up at what is that place up in the Maplewood? I went like
Maplewood.
24 minutes with the Maplewood
You
up
like
in
24
PA.
minutes?
It's a
Oh my
giant
God.
smorgasbord.
Jesus.
Well, I sat there a lot too. I mean,
My
my plates
hat's
were
off
full
to you.
though.
You did what? Your plate was full? Jeez.
My plate was full, but I mean, I didn't really go anywhere. But I filled up my plates and I sat and enjoyed it. So,
So
but I
so
think we
this
bumped
this
this
is
thing
a
as far
rabbit
as
hole. Like we I mean, I don't even know how we got off the rails because it was a pretty serious topic, man. I don't know what happened. You know, I'm at
it was.
7%
I mean, it
battery.
was.
I'm at 7% battery life. My lighting looks
Oh
good.
boy,
This is fantastic. Look at this. You check it out. You see my
your
little
lighting
set
looks
back there.
fantastic.
Look at that. Look, you see my
I
Sasquatch
see your
coffee thing
altar
back there.
back there, man.
Oh, dude, it looks
It's
good,
it.
right? What's that?
But as we sign off, I stopped at Bass Pro Shop over the weekend, and I bought this. It's cinnamon brown sugar coffee,
No way.
but the name of it is Atomic Llama.
Wow.
Is the name of the coffee.
You try it yet? That
Really good
sounds
coffee.
awesome. Wow.
Yeah. I had it over the weekend. It was really good.
That's Black
Atomic
Rifle
Llama. So if you're a Bass Pro Shop,
Sasquatch coffee right there.
pick up some Atomic Llama.
I got
And I
the
want 5 cents for every bag that we sell due to the
there
show.
you go. This is
Oh, nice.
we don't really have a sponsor, but if we did, I'd want it to be Black Rifle Coffee Company because it's
Black
tastes good.
Rifle.
Yeah, it's good coffee.
We'll
And the
we'll have to
ghost
get
energy
producer
that
Steve
keeps
on
me
getting the
rolling.
Black
Yeah.
Rifle.
So I think what we've established here
Yeah,
tonight is,
I just have my Aaron Nola cup that I
dude,
got
what
that I
if
put
we?
water in.
You know what this makes it look like? We actually have sponsors. This is fantastic. Look, is anybody
It does.
that has wants to leave us a comment, think about where we landed on some of the topics we discussed with Wrestling Impact. Again, change the game. That's what I want everybody to think about. Who changed the game, not who upped it, not who made the most money, just fundamentally changed how it was done and blueprint for an entire generation. Um, and I'm sure we probably missed somebody, but that's why I need your help.
I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
I'm sure we did. But Mozart, it's been a fun show.
Oh
We're
yeah.
down to almost a 6 minute warning. So,
Woo!
we
Just
gotta,
take me 6 minutes to
wrap
wrap
this thing
up.
up, fill the rabbit hole back in,
Yeah.
and make sure we can dig another one.
Dude, I'm stoked. This is so much fun.
But guys, it's been great. And again, like Mozart said, if if we miss somebody, because our brains are only so big, they're about that big. Say, hey, you missed this guy. Leave it in the comments. And let us know how close we are. What's your list? Again, that changed the game.
Yeah.
Not most tickets, not most money. Revolutionized and changed the game of pro wrestling.
Changed the game, like Howard
maybe,
changed the game for anybody who eats roast beef going forward. If you can't choke on it, you weren't really eating it. Yeah, I wouldn't call it undefeated when you had to drive yourself to the hospital. You barely made it,
dude. Listen, I might have been down for a 2 count, but I kicked out. I am right now. I am the reigning, defending New Jersey roast beef eating champion of the world, brother.
I'm gonna buy you a belt. Fantastic.
But listen, guys, it's been fun, Mozart. It's been fun as always.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything my tagline going out because I didn't do that much research because I didn't have time. I'm still in my work clothes. I haven't even changed out of my work clothes. Came home from work.
You want
to do an hour's worth of work.
Oh, Howard!
What's that?
The ambulance is on its way to get you.
The ambulance. Listen, I can start taking my stuff off now.
Oh, for the love of God! Oh, dear God! On that note,
but I don't have a tagline for tonight. I'll work on it. But yes, until next week, guys. Have a great night. Stay warm. Stay safe. Be sensible on the road.
Make sure you hold on to that tag rope if you're going to tag.
Yes, and hang on to the tag rope.
Yeah, but always hang on to the tag rope.
Guys, thank you. It's been great. Right, and until next week, everybody have a great week.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.